Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to give you guys a quick comparison between the Sony HX50V and the NEX3N. Now these are two very different cameras, however they are both manufactured by Sony. Both right now reside at the same price point of $449.99 here in the United States, and they both have very similar form factors. I think they also both appeal to very similar audiences. So that's why I'm comparing them today, despite the fact that this camera on the left, the 3N, has an APS-C size sensor, which is much larger than the sensor found in the HX50V, which is the same one found in the HX300, a consumer point-and-shoot sensor to say the least, whereas the APS-C is trying to deliver digital SLR quality at a fraction of the price traditionally associated, especially also a fraction of the form factor traditionally associated with digital SLR performance. So let's take a look at what we're actually getting here for the 450 respectively out of each camera. I'm going to start off with the 50V. It is the latest and greatest, and by that I mean it is slightly younger than the 3N that I'm going to be getting to in a moment. It is very different, of course. This is a CyberShot camera, which means it's all about features that will basically appeal to everyone. Now this camera has more of an enthusiast target in my mind, but still affords just about everyone who picks it up a great experience. So whether you want to stay in auto all the time or really get hands-on, use that multi-interface shoe up at the top for external microphones, flash, or viewfinder. It's got a built-in flash, which is serviceable. It doesn't have the tilt capability found on many of the NEX models, something I think we all would have liked to have seen. You do get a traditional mode dial, something that is vacant from a camera like the 3N, but I want to keep focusing here on the 50V. And you do get a dedicated EV dial, which is nice. Your shutter button borrowed directly from the RX100, as well as your zoom toggle lever. On-off button has been relocated, as has just about everything else. The microphone array right here surrounding the interface shoe, and the actual controls are very similar to what we found in previous generations. Your thumb grip pad right there. Movie button, I'm not sure how I really feel about that placement yet. I haven't had too many mispresses, but I imagine some of you will have problems. Basically, the larger the hands, the more inadvertent movie recordings you're probably going to end up with, but this is something you'll find with just about every camera on the market. Overall, I like the layout. Buttons are solid. Overall construction is solid. You've got the multi-interface port right there, which is for charging as well as USB transfer in case you don't want to use the onboard Wi-Fi. In addition to Wi-Fi transfer, you also have Wi-Fi control with the HX50V, something you do not have with the 3N. You'd have to step up to something like the 5R or NEX6 in order to get Wi-Fi features. However, even though this does have Wi-Fi, it doesn't have the NEX suite of different Wi-Fi applications. So do keep that in mind. Even though this is branded as a Wi-Fi capable camera, it does not have those NEX applications like time-lapse, among several others that are actually usable, even though you could argue many of them, most of us could live without. GPS, not much to say there. It works, it's functional, but again, that Wi-Fi control is unique, something not found on any other CyberShot camera, again only found on the 5R and 6 right now. The interface shoe, again, is critical, something that you will not find on this 3N. The 30 times optical lens is simply fantastic. You've got G-Glass. This is a 35mm equivalent of 24mm to 720. So that in itself, I think for many of you out there, in addition to the fact that you can stick an electronic viewfinder on here, may be enough, more so than even the size difference in the sensors between these two cameras, depending on how picky you are, how much of a pixel peeper you are. That may in itself make this decision for you, because that makes this the more flexible and, in my opinion, complete option out of the box if you never plan to buy another lens for your possible purchase of that NEX3N. Battery life in here, very solid. Of course, if you use that Wi-Fi and GPS, it's going to shrink that life, but on a one-to-one, apple-to-apple here, still performance rating, both of these cameras come in at a little under 400 stills, or maybe even 400, depending on what you shoot. I do want to point out video capability with the 50V is technically on paper superior because it does have a 60p option. Again, we're talking about 1080p AVC HD capture. Both also can capture an MP4, a more web-friendly format, more editing friendly in general for most users. But if you want the highest quality, you're going to be shooting in AVC HD, and this camera, the 3N, the one that has the interchangeable lenses and the larger sensor, unfortunately is limited in that arena to 60 interlaced and 24p. But don't let that make you leery of the actual video performance, because I can assure you that if you shoot even just with this lens alone, you're going to be astonished by the video quality. However, you're never going to have the reach that this lens in the 50V, that 30 times lens, will afford, nor will you have the active steady shot optical combination of optical steady shot image stabilization along with the active steady shot mode that you've got here in the HX50V. So the HX50V definitely better in the video mode, despite the fact that it has the substantially smaller sensor. It's pretty much the optimal combo for the handy cams right now, all the way up to the top of the line. I'm not going to say top, but certainly very close to many of the top of the line video cameras out there. And that's been part of the hallmark of the HX lineup, starting with the 9V and up. I won't say the 5V because the 9V was the first to really take video all the way up and challenge many, or even cannibalize much of the camcorder market. Both of these cameras are limited to 29-minute video clips. Do keep that in mind while we're on the subject of video. But again, both will perform very similarly when it comes to battery life. The resolution on the HX50V, before I start going over the 3N here on the screen, is it's better than what you'll find on the 3N. That was part of the compromise on the 3N with price to get that originally $500 retail, which is now $450. It's been on the market for roughly 2 months, a little over that. So that's a considerable drop already, which I think just makes it an even better buy. But the point is that when it comes to battery life, despite the extra features here, as I mentioned before, if we're just going one for one, you're going to see very similar performance whether you're shooting stills or video. Now, the 3N is an entirely different beast than what I've been talking about with the HX50V, not just because you've got an interchangeable lens here, but of course that's the most important element. You can stick just about any piece of E-mount glass on here, whether you want to do some prime Sigmas, the prime Zeiss, SEL 18-200, the LE version of that lens, basically everything I've covered. I mean, you guys can take a look at my videos. I've covered almost every piece of Sony E-mount glass out there. The 10-18 wide angle, which is a phenomenal piece of glass. But the point is that I think most of you that will buy this will not be interested in spending another $500 or $1,000, 500 that is, of course, to 1,000 or even more, 1,200 with the the new Power Zoom 18-200. I don't think you're going to make that leap, and that's where I keep emphasizing that the 50V really is the best choice for those of you who are concerned about trying to replace your camcorder in an all-in-one. This really is still more of a photographic tool in the most natural of senses than the HX50V, which I really view as a hybrid, the best of everything, trying to give you everything you could want and replace everything. This camera, on the other hand, is really still aimed at trying to replace your digital SLR or that full frame you're drooling over at a fraction of the price. And that's because that's what APS-C size sensors in NEX cameras from Sony are all about. I mean, that's been the calling card, the form factor, and the Power Zoom Pancake lens really is the first lens optimized to show off the form factor that's always been there. I mean, the 16mm wide angle was a good start, but no zoom. Here you've got a 16-50 equivalent, optical steady shot, again, no active, so you're not on video going to get the type of stability you would from the 50V, which is lending from the same technology that Sony's redesigned for their Handycam lineup, something that's also found in the HX300. So when it comes to video image stabilization, you're not going to get the same quality here, but you are going to get much better looking video if you're going to plunk this on a tripod. So that's really what it comes down to. Of course, no hot shoe here. So for those of you looking for an electronic viewfinder experience, forget about it. You just can't do it. If you want that, you've got to move up to the 5R. Same applies to touchscreen, Wi-Fi, the application, all of those things are missing from this model. But part of that is that you're saving some money, especially since you're getting, as I mentioned before, this $350 lens included out of the box. So there's a lot to like here. You also have the first NEX with a power zoom, not only kit lens, but I mean, besides the NEX6, but also with a power toggle for that zoom, which can also control the future power zoom lenses and current ones like the SELP 18-200. So that's a nice feature, but I'm not sure how much that's going to matter, because again, I think most of you are going to buy this and say, I'm done right out of the box, and maybe if I want another lens down the road, excuse me, I will pick up a prime, but not really the the large 11x zoom lens that are out there, whether it's the power 18-200 or the non-powered ones. So overall, I really do like this package. All of your ports are right here on the left side of the body, and that gives you access to everything. Your SD card slot, your micro USB for charging, as well as HDMI out, something that no NEX camera to date has done. And I really do like the design, but as I mentioned in my full review of this camera, if you plan to put larger glass on this, it really becomes imbalanced, because the grip is really optimized for use with this lens. Light, keeps everything really balanced. Once you put something bigger on here, it's just a different animal, and far less comfortable for long days of shooting than something like the 5R, 6, or 7, which afford you a larger grip. But as far as a pocket point and shoot, that's where this one kind of blurs the line, even though it is an NEX, because again, form factor really close. You do get that full articulating screen, which even though it can't do anything other than that 180 swivel, it does allow for self-portrait. So a lot of great features here, incredible still capability, even features borrowed from the flagship A99 in a $450 package. You're getting that $350 lens, you're getting great still, great video, not 10 frames per second like this camera, but this camera's not giving you the image quality that this is at its 4.5 frames per second. So these things have to be taken into account. As usual, the devil is in the details, and the corners that cut or have to be cut, generally in my opinion with both of these cameras, are offset by all of the different gains in performance and features. I can tell you right now, both autofocus very well, especially for their class, especially the 3N, the 50V. Right now, as far as cyber shots go, outside of the RX100 and RX1, which are in a class of their own themselves, the HX50V is the best cyber shot that I've used to date. That includes the HX300, granted different because the HX300 does have that 50 times optical zoom, but when it comes to best performance for those of you that are going to stay in auto modes, the 50V will not disappoint. And for those of you who want to actually take control, the 50V is a welcome addition as well. And that's where it differentiates itself from the previous generations of HX cameras, specifically the pocketable ones, of course, I'm referring to, that lack many of the more prosumer and enthusiast features that all of a sudden have popped up on this Pocket Gem. So while it doesn't give you the image quality of the 3N or the other often compared model, the RX100, the HX50V, in my opinion, is a traveler's pocket cam dream, as long as you get some extra batteries and take care of your camera and maybe pop on an electronic viewfinder and maybe even pick up the external mic that I've been reviewing. I think you're going to be thoroughly pleased with your results, both on still and video, as long as you respect that it's not going to give you the digital SLR results that the 3N can deliver. On the other hand, if you need to have those digital SLR results, if image quality, still image quality in particular, is your #1 order of business, then the 3N is the obvious pick. That does come with the known failure, at least in my opinion, to accommodate any type of electronic viewfinder, but that's an intentional move by Sony to force you into another tier of camera and helps differentiate the marketplace for them. And I think that at the end of the day, since the price gap is really close right now between the 3N and the 5R, I think those of you who must have a viewfinder probably will lean towards the 5R anyway, if you don't find that the 50V really accommodates all your needs when it comes to image quality. But with that said, as I was just pointing to, the 3N is all about image quality, that ability to change lenses, which gives you a creative edge that this camera lacks despite its extraordinary focal range. You know, you cannot stick the 16mm pancake lens on the HX50V, those things, and the wide angle adapter, or the 10-18. I could go on and on. No prime lenses. This is not a fast lens that you can get wide open and do low light with, like some of the options that are out there with the 3N. But again, this is all about the 3N out of the box, and when it comes to that, the lenses in terms of speed are very similar, but the 3N does have far greater limitations with that focal range of the pancake kit zoom, which is only 16 to 50 millimeters, so a fraction of what's offered by its counterpart on the left. Let me go ahead and power both up so you guys can actually see the actual extension of zoom. So right now you're looking at, just from powering up, you could also see the power up speed there. They're very close. I think that the HX50V is a little bit faster, but let's see with full extension here as I get around. Now that is the end of the 30x reach, and then on the other end, it doesn't really translate on the pancake. The pancake barely moves when you zoom, so that's pretty much as far out as you're going to see this lens come, because most of it's internalized. Despite once it's actually extended, the rest of the zooming function is internalized, at least to my knowledge. So that's what they look like in terms of powering down. I'll see if I can do this simultaneously. A little bit slower on the HX50V, but that was only because I had the lens completely extended. Had it been just at its traditional 24mm wide power up traditional setting, then I think the speed would have been comparable. Both have built-in flashes, as I've pointed out. The built-in flash a little bit better on the 3N, since it can articulate, a feature borrowed from the 6, and something I think that we'll see on the future generations of NEX cameras. Also the RX100. Although the flash for this camera looks the same, it unfortunately does not actually work the same, which is sad. As you can see, it cannot articulate. You will need to deploy that flash on your own. For those of you who want to stick with auto, that's not going to work. The flash here, you do actually need to power the camera up, if you noticed, which is again interesting because this is an interchangeable lens camera, so you wouldn't expect to have to power up the camera to deploy a flash like that, but there you go. And as I mentioned, you do have that ability to put your fill light where needed. So I mean, that pretty much covers just about everything you guys need to know. Or no, I made a mistake there. It can deploy. My miscue. I thought that was a little bit strange. I just didn't give it enough of a press. But the point is that, you know, really with this camera, I do have to say, you're not going to need to use the flash that much. And that really applies to both. I haven't, since I first started using, at least with the Cybershots, the HX9V, the flash feature became pretty much irrelevant to me because, quite frankly, in low light, these cameras did redefine their segment. And the NEX models also have done the same. So it's very rare that I find that I'm using a flash on any of these, but there's no question a flash like the one found on the 3N is probably one of the few that I would use, much like the one on the NEX6 and RX100, because at least there you can try not to overexpose your subjects and blow things out. But with the HX50V, I find that flash really thus far has not been used at all, because quite frankly you can't adjust the fill light there, and as a result you're better off really just trying to use the auto modes and low light night modes in order to get your best possible result. But overall, both of these cameras are phenomenal picks depending on what you particularly need. I think I've covered just about everything. Hopefully this answers a lot of your questions out there. If you don't need those interchangeable lenses and you don't need you know, the best image quality that you can possibly get for $450, get the HX50V. You won't regret it. If you have to have interchangeable lenses and don't care about the fact that you're not going to have that hot shoe found on every camera in the NEX family, not the same hot shoe, but a hot shoe other than the 3N, and can live with that, it can live with the half-res screen, but of course you do get the benefit of better battery life and a great power zoom kit lens, I don't see any reason why the 3N wouldn't be your #1 choice. So really both are great cameras designed for different but also very overlapping markets, and that's why I wanted to give you guys this comparison. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them, and of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.